looks ridiculous. Hold on.
Welcome to Pro Prep Baseball. I'm Ken Arnold.
And I'm Tommy Weber.
Hey, thanks for joining us tonight, everyone out there in Pro Prep Baseball world. What we're going to do tonight, Tommy, is we're going to start one of those watch parties again, if that's okay with you. That way we can get some extra folks in. Let's see. Let me bring that up. There we go. Let me see if I can hear you. Oh, I can hear you just
Can you hear
fine.
me?
Yep. Hey, there's Renee. All right, Renee. Thanks for joining us,
Hey,
man.
Renee.
Good to see you again. All right, let me start this watch party. Where is it? Yeah, and then we'll get going and we'll start talking about all the fun stuff we need to do. Oh, did you have a great weekend, Tommy?
Having a good weekend, my friend.
Good.
But too much rain. Too cold, too much rain. Let's go. Need some warm weather. Hopefully this week.
Yeah. That would be nice because we got a lot of makeup games to do now. We got rained out today.
I'm sure you do.
And we were playing 4 games in a row anyway, 4 days in a row. And for a youth baseball team, that's a lot because you go through
That is a lot.
You go through your pitching and you really don't have a lot of pitchers. And kind of hurt us yesterday in our game. I had to go to like my 4th or 5th pitchers, and they can't throw strikes anyway. So
Right.
So it got a little difficult. But we managed. We were competitive. My starting catcher was on a trip to New York to go see a Broadway show. So yeah, I mean, great for him. But you know what I mean. It was like every pitch, the other catcher was up, back to the backstop, pick up the ball, walk it back out, throw it back to the pitcher. I was just like, okay, we got to stop the ball at some point, please. But that didn't happen. So here's a quick question for you before we get into the serious business. So the infield fly rule, Tommy, how do I teach it to these kids who are 13 years old so they don't just take off running when the kid misses the pop-up?
How?
2 games in a row they did it, right? The first game I wasn't coaching on the bases because I got to the game late. I had to work. I didn't get there on time. So my other coaches, first and second, boom, pop-up goes up. Umpire calls it out. The kid misses it. What do you think my runners do? They take off. And guess what? Double play. They get caught, both, boom. They tag 2 runners out, and we're out of the inning. We could have had a huge inning, right? So yesterday, before the game, Tommy, I told my team, I called them aside. I said, this is the rule. This is what happens. Man on first and second, or bases loaded, ball goes up, and you hear the umpire say, infield fly rule, what do? We stay, coach. Yes, stay. Don't run. You run at your own risk, right? And if you hear me saying don't run, right? So here we are in a tie game in the last inning. We got the bases loaded, Tommy. Pop up to the shortstop.
Nobody out?
Nobody out. Guess what? No, there was one out.
One out.
Right? Guess what? The shortstop and the third baseman go like this. Boom! Run right into each other. Ball drops. Doink! I'm yelling the whole time. Don't run! Don't run! Don't run! Kid from second base takes off. The shortstop picks up the ball, looks to his left, and just tags him right in the chest. Boink! Then he runs over to the guy, because the guy from first took off running, tags him right in the chest. Double play. We lose the game by 1 run. And they come up, they score a run, they win. I'm like, what? We just talked about that before the game. How do I teach it to them? I don't know. Besides, they feel
I think having to teach it to them says more than pretty much answers your question. If you've got to teach them that at this age, it's just like guys don't know, 60 feet 6 inches, 17-inch width of home plate. We've discussed this before. You just don't grow up really learning any of the foundational rules, dimensions of the game. You don't. It's just not something that kids do anymore, or coaches teach. Everybody's too busy playing travel ball and showcasing and rotisserie league and fantasy league kind of baseball, and that's really what the game. That's how kids are raised in the game. They're not raised in the fundamentals of the game. They're raised in that kind of kind of circus performing sort of stuff, the stuff that's kind of stands out to them. I'm not surprised that I'm sure that happens everywhere. I don't think college players could. I bet you if you gave college players a test and one of the answers or questions was to explain the infield fly rule, they wouldn't be able to do it.
Yeah. Oh, and you're right, Renee. That is a triple play. The batter is out. They tug my guy coming from second to third, and then they tug the
runners
guy.
run at their own risk.
Yeah, and then they tug the guy running from first to second. So, yeah, there was no outs, and it was a triple play, and we lost by a run. So, yeah, it was bad.
And I tell Renee I'll get the word out to my students about the MCBL. Great league. It's kind of a sister league to the ACBL. Yep. Renee and Brian Casey do a fabulous job. Really a niche for a lot of players who otherwise wouldn't be playing all summer long in a competitive league. So I'll get the word out.
Oh, cool. Very cool. Thank you. Let's see. Where did we wind up here? I'm trying to find our feed for our regular. There we go. All right. So, Tommy, we wanted to talk about some things tonight, and I know you had a couple topics that you brought up. We talked about earlier, and attendance being one of them. Can you go into that for me? The attendance at Major League games, I believe you're talking about.
Yeah, I think last year attendance was down pretty dramatically in the first month of the season, and this year it's down even more than it was last year. And people are trying to figure out why. And I think, I think Major League Baseball miscalculated in a lot of ways a few years ago. I think, first of all, there's a basic premise that Major League Baseball has that's absolutely untrue, and that is that homers sell seats. I disagree. I think action sells seats because now you have more home runs than you've ever had, and you have fewer people coming out to the ballpark to enjoy the game. So I don't think you could draw the conclusion that the home runs are going to bring people out because you've never had more home runs. The home run has never been more a part of play than it is today, and yet people aren't coming out. The home run is an action killer. It's not an action producer, and I think people like action. Also, there's no doubting that the games are too long and the pace of play is too slow. There is no rhythm to the games. It's hard to watch these games. It really is. And increasingly, the conversation with people that I encounter on an everyday basis, unsolicited, is they don't watch the games anymore. They're hard to watch. And baseball keeps cramming stuff down your throat that people keep saying they don't want. And baseball's trying to tell people you should want it, and the result is fewer people are watching and fewer people are attending.
Yeah, and like you said, the lack of action. They did a study. Strikeouts are up. The lack of action has gone up too. Things are happening at a more or a less frequent rate now because the ball's not put in play. It's not put in play, so nothing happens. The only thing that happens is the catcher catches it and throws it back to the pitcher.
Your affinity for the game notwithstanding, the game is a slow game to begin with. Baseball's always been an acquired taste. It's not a game that you turn on and it kind of explains itself to you. So you've got to really pay attention and work to appreciate baseball. Well, if you have to work and it takes an hour longer and it challenges your attention span and people's attention spans are shorter, baseball has failed miserably in trying to bridge that gap. As a matter of fact, it's done everything to increase the gap. Instant replay, which we've gone over 1 million times, is a catastrophic disaster as far as I'm concerned. It does nothing to enhance the entertainment value of the game.
I think it takes away from the entertainment value. I think it takes away.
I agree. And I think it's the replay in all sports is doing that. And maybe the ultimate was yesterday's Kentucky Derby, which was an absolute, as far as I'm concerned, that was a
travesty,
catastrophe.
Yeah, that was terrible.
These sports have to remember, they're not in the baseball business and they're not in the horse racing business. They're in the entertainment business. And if you're trying to tell me that what happened yesterday at the Kentucky Derby is in the best interest of the sport, wow, then you're watching and seeing something very different than I am.
Yeah.
And baseball suffers from the same thing. I'm sick of hearing, yeah, but we want to get it right. I don't think the fans really care if you get everything right. We're okay with the neighborhood play. We're okay with, dropping the glove on the bag, and if the ball beats the runner, he's out. It's good for everybody. Baseball is constantly concerned, it seems to me, with fixing things nobody is claiming are broken.
No, they aren't broken.
I don't remember people clamoring for instant replay. I just don't.
Yeah. So we got a couple questions on the watch party, Tom, that you can't see. And Jamie Nash, who is an O's fan, lives down here in Maryland. He keeps hearing that the major leagues, the swing angles and the pitchers pitch up in the zone more because they're throwing harder. Is this something people are teaching at the lower levels? And yes, they are teaching it at the lower levels. When I'm coaching kids, and the first question they ask me, how do I improve my launch angle? They're teaching it at the lower levels. Seriously, because I get that question sometimes. How do I increase my launch angle? Well, I'll tell you, not with me. You're not going to do that. We're going to talk about putting the ball in play and putting it in play consistently and consistently hard. That's what I'm looking for when I'm coaching a kid.
Increasingly, obviously, if you're on social media, all you hear, you're inundated with launch angle, exit velocity, all of these things, which people have really swallowed in mass. I mean, really have. It's amazing.
Yeah, watch Major League Baseball Network.
Not only are you all in, man. If you're not all in, you're like a heretic. I mean, they don't even want to hear anybody who disagrees in any shape, manner, or form. It's become a religion. It's not really a philosophy. Launch angle is something that's always exists. Every ball is launched at an angle. When I hit fungos, they're launched at some angle. So it's not a philosophy. It's like saying gravity is your philosophy. Well, gravity exists whether you like it or not. The real issue is, how do you develop a player who, as a young person, is going to enjoy the game, have a chance at playing a lot, and have a chance to be a proficient player? It is not, and I'll say this for the record, and anybody who wants to at me or talk to me, please feel free to call me. Your job is not to develop major league talent, okay? That's not going to happen. Here's a news flash. Your kid's not going to the big leagues. So what you should be doing is finding a way for that kid to enjoy the game the most, have the highest likelihood of participating a lot while he's 13, 14, 15 in high school and in whatever league he plays in. And the way to do that is by never striking out. Because if you don't strike out, you're forcing the other team to make a play. You're always going to be in the mix. You're going to get on base a lot. You're going to hit a lot of line drives. You're going to get a lot of hits. And you're going to have a lot of fun. If you hit the ball in the air as a small kid, you're going to get into a lot of outs and hit for a very low average, and you're not going to play. It's a very bad way to teach. If you want to teach big leaguers to lift the ball more, different story.
Yep.
That has no place at all
in youth baseball,
the amateur game.
No.
At all.
Mm-mm. No, that is absolutely correct. The other day, I had my guys before the game, after I told them about the infield fly rule, I said, hey, when we get 2 strikes, how about we widen our stance a little bit? How about we choke up a little bit? How about we put the ball in play, put the pressure on the defense? And they were just looking at me like, they were just looking at me like, well, what does that mean? And I said, well,
I can make a strong argument for you mandating every kid should choke up.
Yeah.
If Barry Bonds
choked up,
yeah. Why isn't your 13-year-old second baseman? Please explain that to me.
Exactly.
Regardless of the steroids, all right, and the performance-enhancing drugs, Barry Bonds was a magnificent player, with or without the help. If he could choke up, you could choke up, and you should. The fact that so few guys in the major leagues choke up is absurd to me, especially when everybody strikes out 17 times a game.
It's ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. I watched a game today, the Phillies and the Nats, and Sanchez is a good pitcher, right? But his heyday was 4 or 5 years ago. And he's within 10, 11, 12 guys in the first 4 innings of a game? Okay, what? Get out of here. That guy couldn't break a pane of glass anymore. He's not throwing 97 like he used to. He's throwing 91. He's got good movement. But he's not, and people are they're swinging at pitches, like you said, and we'll get to that later in the show. They don't manage the strike zone.
At all.
They're just swinging at whatever. They're not even, they don't even care. They don't look for certain pitches in certain areas. They don't do any of that. So.
Yeah, I'm shocked. I'm not shocked. I mean, it makes sense. The lack of context kind of hitting, like it's 2 strikes, the pitcher's tough. Some guys, as are just a tough look. When you're in a batter's box, man, I got to get lucky to get. Well, maybe you just want to shorten up a little bit so you don't strike out with a runner on third and nobody out. Yeah, I mean, it defies logic, and I am not some old school guy hanging on to yesteryear. I have been in the game seamlessly my entire life. I've taken no breaks. I've seen all the changes. Some are great. players are stronger. Players are they take better care of themselves. But this is a bitter pill to swallow, because as a coach and a manager, when you want your team to win and you know what the formula is, and people are flying in the face of the formula, it's as if you're trying to make a point. And the point is, I'm going to do this. It's a defiant point. You're saying, I'm going to do this come hell or high water. Well, guess what? Hell and high water have come, because this is a month, I believe, this is the first month where this month has the highest rate of strikeouts, the fewest ground balls, and the highest rate of fly balls in the history of the game.
Is that insane? It's insane. I mean, when I watch a game now, I can't even believe it. Jamie Nash came back on again, the O's fan, and said, what about Bunny? He goes, he never sees it anymore. What do we think about that? Well, you don't see it anymore because everybody, even the smallest guys, come up and they swing, because they're trying to hit it out of the ballpark. They're not trying to move runners over. It isn't fun. It isn't. You don't make the highlight reel that way.
I have to recuse myself because I don't, as you know, I'm not involved with 13-year-old, players. But if I had to manage like a 13 to 15-year-old team, I'll tell you what we would do. First of all, we'd be stealing all the time,
which is what we do.
Catchers can't catch the ball or throw.
Yep,
the other
we do
thing
it every
we'd
time.
be doing is a lot of bunting, because you'll get a lot of hits if you bunt, because you're forcing the other team to do the most difficult thing in all of baseball, is to throw the ball in a hurry and accurately. You get one chance. Hitting is difficult, but you could foul balls off. You could hang in there in an at-bat and get a little base hit. Throwing the ball in a hurry is the hardest thing to do. So if you force the other team to throw the ball in a hurry, the likelihood of them doing so accurately goes down precipitously. The math, for you analytics guys, works in your favor.
Yeah, it does.
Imagine if you didn't strike out 21 outs in a 7-inning game. If your team forced the other team to get you out 21 times at 13 years old. You've got guys who can't reach first base. Striking out is doing them a favor. So really, forget about all this technique stuff you're doing. If you could just manage the strike zone and never swing at bad pitches, you almost can't lose.
Yep.
You can't sell that on Twitter or go online and say you're a guru because you preach knowing the strike zone.
Yeah, and bunting. You preach bunting and moving runners over. And,
oh my God, that's old school. Forget about it. They'll burn you out.
Get them over, get them in, right? Get them over, get them in.
Whatever happened to that?
I don't even know. Do they even practice that in batting practice anymore? I don't even know.
My philosophy always is score every run and make every out, which means don't give the other team any outs. And anytime there's a run that you can score, you got to get that run home. Because if you get 3 or 4 tack-on runs and you earn 3 or 4 other runs, well, that's 7 runs in a game.
Yeah. Thank you, Frank, for coming on. Do you know Frank Ciuffo? His name is last name?
Frank Ciuffo, sure.
Ciuffo,
Played together forever.
Okay. Yeah.
Played Little League together. I know Frank forever. He's a great guy. Great guy.
Thanks for joining us, Frank.
Thank you.
Jamie Nash, it reminds me of the high school teams that do onside kicks because of analytics as well. That's kind of crazy as well. I see a lot of football teams doing that now. They just do an onside kick, and then they just rely on their defense because the analytics tell them they have a good chance of stopping them on that first drive and getting a good position.
Now, look, if you want to punt less, or if you want to be aggressive and take some risk based on the fact that you're only giving up a certain amount of yardage, net, whatever, I understand that. But you don't need 14 people in your analytics department to tell you that. I mean, we're spending an awful lot of time, energy, and resources on things that really you basically knew 50 years ago. I mean, who didn't know that a big guy hits the ball harder than a little guy does? Or that the ball that's hit 400 feet is probably hit at a higher rate of speed than a ball that's hit 200 feet.
I knew that when I was playing. I would say, "Oh, that ball was crushed," or
right. We used to use different words.
Yeah.
They use miles per hour. The ball was smoked, or that was a laser, or whatever. Yeah. But it meant the same thing.
Yeah. Frozen Rope would be one of them.
Right,
that was a
right.
seed. That was a seed.
That guy he hit a missile. I get it.
That guy's blowing cheese. You know what? That's because he's throwing 97. So yeah, good luck. It's a riot, and the whole with the bunting thing, right? Julio Cruz used to come in the dugout, and this was in Double-A back in the mid '90s. I know it's old school, right? But he would come into the dugout, and every day he would walk out. First thing he'd say, "Guys, I just want to tell you, the bunt bleeps everything up." He'd just come right out. It does. It messes it up because it puts pressure on the defense, especially at 13 years old. Right?
Moving parts.
Yes.
Moving parts.
Look, I want my kids to all get up there and swing and be aggressive, but in certain situations, man, let's drop one down every now and then, right? So, I don't know. It's crazy. And Jamie Nash comes on and says he was 6'4", 220, and he never hit a home run. So everyone backed up when he came up, and he blooped them all in. Hey, but you got on base.
And absolutely. And now they're shifting.
Oh,
so they're giving you a section of the field that if you hit it softly there, it's a base hit. Yeah. Anything you do, if you could just play pepper with the shortstop, if you're a left-handed hitter, it's a hit.
Bat control. Does it even exist anymore?
Nobody talks about bat. Kids, nobody can play pepper. Nobody. You can't play pepper because they can't do anything unless it's all out. Like hitting it as hard as you possibly can, trying to create some exit velocity of 1,000 miles an hour, which is a waste of time. There
are some guys in the big leagues, and there's a guy on the Phillies, Segura, the shortstop. He's really good at, bat control and putting the ball, and he leads the league in hits. I mean, he last couple of years, he's gotten over 200 hits. So, and his batting average right now is 350 something. I mean, he's just peppering the ball.
The kid with the Mets, I mean, the Mets are terrible, but the kid McNeil, I love the way that kid hits. Yeah. Chokes up. He gets a lot of hits.
Puts the ball in play.
You know what?
Hits it hard.
When you're playing close games, you need hits. You got to get a runner on. You got to get a guy hits a double down into the corner. You could score that guy. There's a myriad amount of ways you could score rather than relying on a guy who hits. If you hit a lot of home runs in the major leagues, you're hitting one a week. That better come at a really good, opportune time. Otherwise, you might as well not hit that home run.
So the shift, though, are we for it, against it? I mean, I see it. I used to play shifts on certain hitters.
Yeah. But the shift is smart. If you can't look, if you're telling me you can only pull the ball, why would I have two guys to the left of second base?
Exactly.
You think. If it's me, basically what I'm doing is I'm making sure you have no place in the game. You'll never get a hit unless you get the ball through my second baseman or through my shortstop who's in right center field. Try that.
Yeah. So I like the shift in certain situations against certain hitters, but I don't like it in certain situations against certain hitters because then you see a ball that was a routine ball if they didn't shift or if they didn't overshift, that now becomes a botched play because they were out of position. They shifted.
Well, it's like anything else. Once it gets a foothold, you have to do it all the time.
Yeah.
We did it with a lot. Look, I've always essentially shifted because if there's a left-hander up, I want to play with.
Yeah, I move over.
Right. I want my second base. I want to have two shortstops. I don't want my third baseman, playing a regular, 8 feet from the bag. I want him basically in the hole, and my shortstop up the middle because left-handers don't usually hit the ball on the ground over the third base bag. Yeah. But now it's gotten to the point where it's. But look, it's like anything else. It's like the free market. They've understand there's a niche here. If you could hit the ball all over the field, you could be very, very successful because they can't defend you. But if you're going to be Chris Davis or one of these other guys who refuses and cannot, for whatever reason, hit the ball the other way, well, you're a one-trick pony, man. You better hit a lot of home runs.
Yeah, absolutely true. Ruben Sierra hated me because I played him on the second base side of the base. And he would hit ball to me at least twice a game. And I'd throw him out at first base. And he would run down to first and go, what the hell are you playing there for? Hey, because that's what I know you're going to do. You can't hit the ball the other way. I'm going to play right here. So, whatever. But, the shift works. The shift is nothing new. It's been around for a long time. It's more common now. But, we did it.
I'll tell you what the shift tells you. I'll tell you what the shift puts to bed. It puts to bed the myth that the players are better. No, they're not.
No.
You can't tell me you're better if you can't hit the ball to left field. If there is a preponderance of players who literally only can hit the ball to one half of the field, I don't know how you could define that guy as being better. Hitting has never been worse. There have never been in baseball more guys who really don't hit. I watch games. The Cincinnati Reds had 4 guys in the lineup hitting under 200.
200, yes. Yes. Bryce Harper's hitting under 230. Doesn't he get paid like some ridiculous amount of money to hit higher than that? And he's only got 6 home runs. Come on, man. You know, and he struck out 4 times today or whatever he struck out. So, yeah, I mean, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous that guys, they're not concerned about making contact. And they haven't been for a while now. For, I would say, a good 10 years. At least 10 years. They've just been swinging. Ridiculous. So here's a question for us, you and me, Webbs, as shortstops, right? Jamie Nash imagines we had great arms. Were we pitchers in high school? And I'd like to go into the whole arm thing with shortstop. Yeah, I think I didn't pitch in high school, Jamie. I played shortstop or third base. Never pitched, or in college either. What about you, Webbs? Did you ever pitch when you were in high school?
I caught.
Oh, you were a catcher. Okay, so you had to have a good arm there, too.
I loved to catch. I didn't catch in high school, but I caught in summer ball. And any chance I got to catch, I loved to catch. I've always been fascinated with the position. Obviously, I was an infield. I was a shortstop. But if our catcher was missing or I used to love to warm pitchers up. Because I love to handle the ball. You're in the game. Like, you're really in control. Back then, I actually was able to call the pitches.
Right.
I didn't have that wristband on and somebody telling me what to do. So as a kid, I loved to catch. Loved it. And even now, you know what? I always find myself, when I'm working with my players, I always have a catcher's mitt in my hand for some reason. I just love to catch. But I did pitch a little bit. I enjoy pitching. But, pitching takes a lot out of you. Even if you pitch into, a little bit, it really takes a lot out of you physically. So I kind of shied away from pitching, but I love to catch.
Yeah, and
if I had a 10-year-old kid, that kid would be catching. There are no more catchers.
Yeah,
catching is the best position you could play.
Yeah. So as far as arm strength is concerned, I think we both had above average arms. You and I.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I love to throw. I mean,
like Ozzie Smith said, though, I only used it when I needed to.
Right.
So
me too. I was never showing my arm off.
I wasn't Sean Dunston. I wasn't Sean Dunston heaving the ball as hard as I could every time.
Right.
I used it when I needed to, and then most other times I would just give a nice firm throw across the infield and be accurate. Right. That's all. So. Jamie Nash says handling the game makes sense. That's why he liked first base, but it was because he didn't have any skills. You had to have some skills, Jamie. Well, Jamie's tall.
I'm sure you will find.
Yeah, Jamie's really tall. He's like 6'6".
He's just being modest. Yeah, I'm sure he was just fine.
He was fine.
At 6'4", though, I like to throw to you, boy. Yeah. Man, you just get it and throw it anywhere. And those guys.
That was a
big luxury.
Right? With a wingspan, just like boof.
Throw it anywhere.
Terry Lee, former Cincinnati Red, man, he was 6'8", and I loved throwing to him.
Oh my God.
I could just throw it anywhere.
That's like 2 guys. That's like having 2 guys there.
Oh, it was amazing. And then on the same team, the other first baseman, Steve DeSantis, was 5'8". And I was like,
no, we don't want him.
I don't want him out there ever. Just leave him in the dugout. DH. That guy's the DH. Don't put him at first base. So. Oh, man, this has been a fun show so far. Really, we're getting into it here. So what's this about the college teams with their music blaring, Webbs, in their locker room? What's that all about? What's going on?
So I don't know if you heard, but I'm the I guess I'm like the hitting coordinator for the entire NCAA. I got more guys sending me tape. My guys send me tapes all the time, so I laugh about it. Like, where are your hitting coaches? So I'm not going to name the schools or the players because – obviously there's with good reason. But anyway, I recently got a video from a kid, good hitter, and he's, wants me to take a look at his swing or whatever. And he's indoors and the music is blaring and he's hitting the ball as hard as he can, in the cage. And he's got a good swing and he's a good player. And the first thing I said, I usually send videos back rather than texting. And I said, well, your modus operandi is faulty in that when you're trying to work on something, you need to focus. If you're going to focus, you got to concentrate. I think the blaring music amps you up a little bit and makes you want to go faster and harder and try to hit the ball really hard. I said, you really need a more peaceful environment so that you could really concentrate. It's like if you're studying for an exam, or I use the analogy is that when you're in your car and you don't know where you're going, you'll shut the radio off because you don't want to be distracted because noise will distract you. Well, if you're trying to focus on your hitting mechanics or your feel at the plate, I would think you would want a more peaceful environment so that you could actually focus on everything you're doing. And throughout colleges, throughout the country, they get these guys in the cage, they amp up the music, they're trying to swing as hard as they possibly can, and they're really not getting anything done. And they're leaving the cage thinking they've accomplished something, when in fact the only thing they've done is probably hurt their eardrums and not really done anything constructively with the bat.
Yeah, I also, when I was playing, Tommy, and I would take batting practice, you know what sound I liked? The sound of the bat hitting the ball. The sound of the ball hitting the leather of the glove. Those were the sounds that I liked.
It's interesting you say that.
And made me calm.
It's interesting you say that.
Made me calm.
We worked with a couple of guys in the Cape. And, you know what it's like. You have so much time, you start to really think about, like, how can we do this better? We're always thinking about how to do it better. And we had a couple of, Kanzler and Neil were really good, and we always worked together. It was great. Anyway, and we would say to guys, I would say anyway, well, we all did, let's see if you could make it sound good. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And they looked at us like nobody had ever said that. What? And I said, that's right. I want you to create the kind of sound you want. And what it did was it divorced them from their mechanics. Now it was, wow, how do I create a sound? Well, I'm not going to create a sound by putting my foot down or getting my arm. I'm going to do something to impart enough force on that ball so that I get that big league sound. And guys really took to that. It's, your hearing is a very, very powerful sense. And if you could replicate the sound, it sort of takes the pressure off of you having to be perfect mechanically. And you're really dealing with the results.
When you come across the hitter that creates a distinctive sound, different than other hitters, right? There were times when I would come down the walkway and I couldn't see who was hitting during BP, but I knew who was hitting because of the sound as the ball was leaving the bat. Whack, that crisp, different. It was like a gunshot almost, as opposed to
like Jim Rice.
Yeah,
Jim Rice, or we have guy in the Cape. I would be hitting fungos, and we'd be taking BP, and I wouldn't know who was in what group was in the cage, and I would hear a sound, and I would know, it's Hunter Bishop or it's Nick Dunn, one of these guys who's, really just different. Like, it sounds like a firecracker. Yeah. There's no thud. It's that crisp sound. So I really think that, if you want to be inventive with your hitters, make them create that sound.
Yep. Hey, Steve Mineo joined. Do you see, Steve? Nothing better than a solid hit with a wood bat. That is true, Steve. It is. There is nothing better in the world when you make good, solid contact and you know it. Wow. It's like, wow.
Yep.
It's fantastic. So, going back, we're going to go back a little bit. So, arm strength, Tommy. Somebody came on and asked us, how do you develop arm strength? And my one thing is throw. Get out and throw. Throw, long toss, play long toss. There are exercises you can do, but that's for, you want to develop arm strength, get outside and throw. Don't overthrow, don't go crazy with it, but, have a plan where you're long tossing 3 days a week, you're doing your normal workouts every day, and your arm will get stronger. My right arm, Tommy, and I don't know about your right arm, but if you measure my right arm, and to this day, it is actually almost 2 inches bigger than my left arm.
Mine too. Yep.
Yeah. From throwing
that makes
so
sense.
much. It just is. That's just the way it is. So, but yeah, the music. like you said, even in anything, driving your car, you got to focus. You've got to be focused on what you're doing. And if you want to be
But
the
we've
best at
sold
something,
we've sold a generation of kids on the notion that the only goal is to hit it harder and further,
Yeah.
rather than the goal should be to hit it better, more often. The more balls you hit on the screws, the more balls you're going to hit far. The more you try to hit the ball far, as we're seeing, I don't know where all these data guys are now. What we're seeing is the more you don't make any contact at all, and your batting average plummets. Now you're actually hurting yourself in two ways. You're not hitting for as much power, and you're not hitting.
Yeah.
I'd rather have you hit 15 home runs and hit 340 than hit 27 home runs and hit 235.
Yeah, and now you're putting the ball in play instead of striking out 200 times. You're striking out 100 times, so you put the ball in play another 100 times.
Right.
That drives me insane. All right. So we also have strike zone management. What were you talking about there?
Horrible. Hitters, watch a game. I mean, guys are swinging the balls in the other batter's box on a regular basis. I can't believe that we're not, again, at a young age, you're not teaching hitters to hit good pitches. I don't know. I know guys don't throw harder. They throw for a shorter amount of time so they could air it out for one inning. That's why velocities are up, okay? And they don't throw so much harder that you should be swinging at a ball in the other batter's box.
Yeah. No. Did you notice that also with pitchers that, especially starters who throw like Chris Sale, those guys, they're throwing like 97, 97, 97. And then all of a sudden, Chris Sale's having a tough time even hitting 91. Right? Like this year, he's like he can't throw 91. What is that?
You only have so much 97 in your arm.
He blew it out. He blew it out. Is he going to get that back? I don't know. He might, but chances are, man, I think he's blew it out. Now he's got to pitch, right? He's got to pitch. So
you're right.
And that's a problem. And injuries. Earlier, Renee made a comment that one of his players went to a college because it was a velo school. They talked about the velocity for the pitchers, right? Guess what? Get back to me in a year or two, Renee, and let me know when his surgery is scheduled. Could you do that for me? Because that's what's going to happen. That's where that guy's going, and he's going there fast. All right.
Well, it's funny. The mystery surrounding the cause of all these is one that really I chuckle at. I mean, if you're trying to throw every single pitch as hard as you possibly can, and you're trying to get another mile per hour every single week out of your arm, I mean, isn't a logical conclusion that you're going to do some damage to your arm? I mean, this to me is so academic. I see guys trying, I speak to kids all the time. What's your goal this year? I'm trying to hit triple. Really? Okay. Well, I mean, you might be making a deal with the devil. You might actually get to hit triple digits, but for how long? And there's a lot to throw really hard that stink.
Yeah. No, absolutely. They can't even throw the ball to the plate. I mean, really. How about we try to throw it in the zone so we can get it out? What did the guy I saw on MLB Network this morning, he was saying? He goes, I hunt contact. How many pitchers do you hear that say that? He hunts contact.
Nobody,
right? He wants ground balls. That's what he wants.
Who's the guy from the Cubs? Kyle Hendrickson? Is that his name?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
80. What did he throw? 81 pitches. He didn't throw a pitch above 88 miles an hour.
Yeah.
Shutout. 2 minutes. That should be the template for every young pitcher. Do what that guy did. Because you know what? Not everybody can throw 100 miles an hour. But if you could throw 85 or 86 and pitch like that, you're going to be very successful for a very long time.
Yeah, Steve Minio, I agree. They are trained to think 5 innings is a good outing, and so are fans. Fans are trained as well. I saw somebody walk off the mound the other day, and they gave him a standing ovation for pitching 5 innings. Are you serious? You pitched 5 innings. All right, man.
But you know what? In the early going, there are signs that's starting to fall and starting to really rear its ugly head. The the outcome of that is that these bullpens aren't good enough. There
No.
aren't enough guys to go around. So when
No.
you're taxing these already weak bullpens and guys can't pitch into the seventh inning, you're starting to see the result of it. The actual, what should happen now is the revolution should be, how do we get guys to pitch more innings? And maybe what will happen is you'll get more command and control guys like Kyle Hendrickson, and you'll rely less on guys who could throw 200 miles an hour.
Yeah, today, because I watched the Phillies game today and the Nationals, they took Anibal Sanchez, they took him out in the fifth inning, and the Phillies scored 6 runs in the sixth inning. So, you know what I mean? That's because, and he was dealing. He was dealing. He did have a high pitch count. He was up in the hundreds, low hundreds, but I think he could have went one more, and maybe threw maybe 120 pitches. I don't have a problem with my starter throwing 120 pitches, especially a guy like Sanchez who's barely throwing, breaking 90. So,
one of the great fallacies in baseball, it's a myth, it's untrue, is that the bullpens are so much better. Specialization has made hitting much harder. That's baloney. There are only about 5 teams in baseball that have decent bullpens. Everybody else, you get into that bullpen and you can really do damage. There are just not enough good pitchers to go around, regardless of how few innings you used. That's what's happened over the last few years. Guys have been able to get away with being mediocre pitchers because they're only used for 1 inning. Now that's starting to rear its ugly head too, because years past you only had 1 or 2 of those guys. Now you've got 6 or 7 of them. I hear broadcasters talk about a guy. I don't know if they're going to want him to go 5 outs. Are you serious? Pitchers in your bullpen who you can't trust to get 5 outs?
It makes no sense. But but now they're trying to change the rule so they have to face 3. I think it is. What is that? They have to face 3 hitters.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if that's going to work either. That's kind of. I don't know. I guess they have to try it to see. All right, so enough about baseball. Let's talk politics. Do you like politics, Tommy? I'm not a big fan.
I mean, I hate politics, but I mean, it is what it is.
It is what it is. All right, so this whole Kate Smith deal with the Yankees and the Flyers down in Philadelphia, what's your thoughts on that? We'll close the show with this topic right here. Give me your opinion, then I'll tell you mine.
Well, I just didn't know that the Yankees and thank God the Yankees and the Flyers are keeping us all safe from Kate Smith. I mean, I really appreciate them. I mean, I didn't realize that they were part of Homeland Security or that Kate Smith was such a terrible threat to our well-being. I find it really Look, the Flyers are gutless, and so are the Yankees. The Yankees, they sold their soul time ago when they started wearing pink uniforms and different hats. The Yankees made up for sale a long time ago. So surprised that they caved to pressure that didn't exist. I'm not even really sure where this problem was. It didn't exist. I mean, the Yankees Flyers are trying to solve a problem that nobody seems to have had. And also, Kate Smith, gave a lot of her money from her performances during World War II to the war cause, and I don't know that any of us could withstand the kind of scrutiny that people have to that are put under nowadays for a song that really is part of a great tradition at Yankee Stadium. And my God, it goes back to when Bernie Parent was the goaltender for the Flyers in the playoffs. Yep. They would come out and they would give her a bouquet of roses. I mean, really, shame on the Yankees and shame on the Flyers. As far as I'm concerned. I've always been a guy who roots for the Yankees, but they're making it more and more difficult for me to do so.
Yeah, my opinion is along the same lines. I am not going to judge Kate Smith for something she did when she was 24, when she recorded that first song. She probably did
Which
not.
Which Paul Robeson himself recorded.
Yes.
And he was an African American.
Yes.
Himself. So
yeah,
what's good for the goose is good for the gander.
I'm not going to apply, just like Renee just said, modern day morals to the past, right? I'm not going to hold her feet to the fire for something she did when she was 24, because if people held us to the fire. What we did when we were in our early 20s, we would,
Right.
we would never get any further than what we did in our lives. People change, Tommy. People change, and because you're not on the same side of the political fence as somebody, they're gonna say that you can't progress as a human. I don't believe that. That is crazy. Because she went on and she gave a speech in 1945 on the radio, Tommy, that said, and you can look this speech up, that it is the worst thing in the world, racism, and we need to fight it, and not just at the convention in Geneva, but in our own homes, right here in the United States, in every city, in every home, we need to fight it. And she said that. And I just think it's ridiculous that they went this far with the political correctness in this. Look, if you're going to hold people accountable, right, then they better never play another Michael Jackson song in any arena in this country. I'm serious. No, I know you're laughing, but seriously, because, and this is it, right? Because we're supposed to believe the victim, right? Isn't that the outcry? But in this case, we're not supposed to believe the victim. We were supposed to believe the victim in the Kavanaugh hearings, right? When they had those in Congress. But now I'm not supposed to believe the victim. And I don't want to get too much into politics, but man, it's a fine line we're walking. If we start doing this, I think we're going down a road, and it's not a good road. So
I couldn't agree more. As far as I'm concerned, I appreciate the art. I don't need to know the artist's intent.
Yeah.
Okay. I would still listen to Michael Jackson's song. He was a brilliant genius who also obviously had a very troubled life. It doesn't diminish what he did as an artist. It doesn't does as an artist if they're flawed human being stand itself. And the same should be applied to people like Kate Smith. The fact that she sang Aline, she believes devoutly in the lyric or in its implication, process it in the 21st century. It's absurd. You know what? Yankees, Flyers, bad for business. As far as I'm concerned, you really dropped the ball.
Yeah. All right. You're starting to break up a little bit, so I think your feed is going. I think your feed's going. So
okay.
We're gonna wrap this up. But I thought we had a good show tonight. A lot of things were. We talked about a lot of things. I thought we had some fun with it. We got a lot of people on who made a lot of great comments. Jamie Nash, thank you. Renee, Steve Minio, your buddy Frank. Thank
Frank
you.
Hufo.
Yes, Frank Hufo. Dan Ford just jumped on. Sorry, Dan, you're going to have to watch a rerun, man.
It's on demand.
It's on demand, buddy. It's on demand. Dan Ford says it's a good show. Thank you, Danny Ford. Thank you. All right, we will see you
Thanks,
guys next
right.
week. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll be back. Tommy, I'll see you later, man. Have a good night. I love you, man.
Love you, man.
All right.
Be good.
See you.
All right.